All right. Excellent, excellent. Yet again, we gather together this beautiful day to world build together. But today, specifically, I wanted to talk about weaving the web of secrets and the power that can come to our story through them and from them, and the lore, and how we can use those secrets to explore lore and do great things. So, give us just a moment. I'll pull in Instagram, and then we'll get started. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another world building workshop. Tonight, specifically, we're going to be discussing the web of secrets. Secrets, lies, lore, and all of the goodness that follows with those things. So, bear with us. I'm going to make sure I've got the chats open so that we can see everything. Welcome, everybody on YouTube. It's good to have you here. Always ready to rock and roll. Everybody who's coming in to Instagram, please feel free to join me on YouTube. We're currently streaming live on YouTube. The chat box on Instagram is like this big, while YouTube is the full length of the screen. So if you want to see everything that's going on my notes, please come on over and join the discussion there. And without further ado, let's rock and roll. Secrets. Secrets are interesting. They're interesting in that we depend on them so much, right? In so much of what we do, the big bad evil guy has woven a web of secrets and lies. But how can we make those feel organic and real to our players? Because oftentimes we can all admit it. We can admit that the secrets that we reveal to our players are regularly made up on the spot. I've done it. I'm sure you've done it. We've come up with a piece of lore and just like blooped it into the campaign and just like crossed our fingers and hoped that would work for us. And that's, if it works, it works, right? You can't crap on it if it works. But there's a better way, and hopefully we can discuss that a little bit tonight as we perhaps build a little bit of lore, but this is going to be less like the specifics of, if you've been following along in the various episodes, the specifics of the Great Green Sea, right? Because I have players playing in the Great Green Sea as we speak. I have a monthly game that I have been, I use my one shot every month, and I use the Great Green Sea here. And so that is a thing that I face now, is I'm discussing things that are going on actively in that campaign. So, could we? Yeah. Should we? We'll hold off. So, one of the important things, let's just jump in here. The important things to consider about secrets, and one of their greatest things, the greatest power of secrets, is that they foreshadow. They provide us the ability to allude to the future. And that, well, yes, Bronson, thank you very much. The secrets lead to the future. Hear me out. They can be used to deliberately foreshadow in a way that you no, Brad, please stay. Yeah, I'm not going to go into any particulars. Foreshadow meaning they provide us just a glimpse, a teeny little tidbit of insight into the future of what the future has in store for our players. And one of the glorious things about that is that can naturally hook our players into the plot that we've created. Because it's all well and good that we make a magnificent plot, and then our players derp off into whatever direction they're going to do, and then there's no way for us to get them back onto the perceived plot, the perceived purpose that we have created for them. And so we can seed the side quests that we encounter, and we can ride the side as long as we want. But the secrets that we place along that path provide power in the foreshadowing that they create. Oh boy, getting sneaky now, logging in with different accounts just so that I can't tell that my player is in the chat. For everyone who's joining on Instagram, I see a bunch of people just jumped in. We're talking about secrets and lore and how we can use those to weave the web that surrounds our plot. And so if you want to see the notes, feel free to jump on over to YouTube. It's currently streaming. And the foreshadow that we give our players is... So Rory brings up a good point here. It's the shadow in the woods, something that's mysterious, frightening, and most importantly, intriguing. If we can create an environment that is intriguing to our players, guess what? They're no longer writing the side quest. They're on their main plot. This is the revealing story for them. This is the novel 3.5, where they go off to the side and they discover something about themselves, something about their character, a secret from their backstory. Ooh, man, that's a glorious moment when you can feed your player a tidbit from their backstory, and how, hey, that unimportant backstory that you wrote 10, 15, 20 sessions ago, hey, remember that detail that you gave me? Well, guess what? Here is a secret that you find, and that secret leads back to the main plot, right? But the point here that we're making is that the foreshadowing that we create it's powerful. It's powerful in that the things that the player, meaning the player, can experience here by seeing a glimpse. The whole point is to just be intriguing, like Rory says, to be a glimpse of the future. And that is, let's come up with a good, where do we see that? That is okay, let's use the Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring movie, right? Because I don't think this happens in the book. Or if it does, it's a little darker. Because in the movie, I think Frodo receives kind of a vision from Galadriel of, like, this is what happens if you fail the quest, dude. Like, yeah, all the things that you love, burnt, enslaved, written off. And I think in the book, like, some of that stuff actually happens. So the TV version nerfed it down for us a little bit. Yeah. That's actually a good point. So a lot of what I talk about is about how the dungeon master should be wielding these secrets. The secret holds you hold no power here. Another Lord of the Rings reference. Man, this is just going to be a Lord of the Rings night. It's only the Shire burning, Rory. That's exactly it. But that secret that we give them only matters. Like we could have imagined being the Tolkien, the dungeon master, telling player Frodo, "Oh yes, if you fail this quest, then the Shire will burn and everyone will die and your friends will be enslaved and blah-de-da-de-da-de." And player Frodo forgets his backstory and can't even remember that he's from the Shire. That moment can happen if our players... If we don't use it regularly, right? If you're 16 sessions into whatever campaign that you're running, how often did you refer to someone's backstory? Because heck, if you're analog, if you've got a paper character sheet, that player may well have lost that backstory, let alone like kept it, cherished it, and remembered it. So we have to be using these things from the very beginning. Okay. Now, don't despair if you are, neck deep years into a campaign and you're like, oh well, I can't use the backstory now because freaking player Frodo forgot about it years ago. Manga artist, welcome back. Always good to have you. Bilbo Baggins is the NPC from Frodo's backstory that secretly was a previous campaign's NPC. Definitely. That actually is that's a great way to create a little secret, a little engagement for the player, something that's intriguing. Because when player Frodo interacts with NPC Bilbo, you're able to get the little bits of lore, right? Because this isn't just about secrets. Secrets is an important tool for us as dungeon masters, but it's really the lore that it sources from that is the powerhouse. Okay, so the secrets and lore. And here we go with a potentially it's not controversial. I don't think anyone's gonna be like, this is garbage, unfollow all father games, like he doesn't know what he's talking about. But rather, this is the easy to learn, hard to master sort of concept in writing as a dungeon master. And that is, you actually have to write it. Oh no. Right? The moment that like pen hits paper. So I know some of us have been watching this series since the beginning, since it was just on Instagram, since it was just me talking about a mummy in the desert, making my Faldoria area, my Faldoria campaign. And that's been over a year now. We've been doing this for a long time. But that moment that pen hits paper, everyone on YouTube or everyone on Instagram, if you want to see what paper we're talking about, it's on YouTube, so come check it out. But the moment the pen hits the paper and we actually started talking about the environment, we actually started talking about the reason the city exists, the reason Faldoria was there, the reasons behind all of that. Suddenly, we came up with beautiful lore pieces like the Heaps, which is an entire environment within Faldoria. It's a part of the canyon wall collapsed, and so now there's just this network maze of people, places, and things living in the slums. It's essentially the slums of this city. And that all sourced from simply working through the problem on the paper. Brad says, when Kaladin Stormblessed almost says the fourth ideal but doesn't. It's a glimpse into what could be, but leaves you wanting more. Yeah, that's a great example, Brad. So for people that don't know, Kaladin Stormblessed, this is from the... Oh goodness, the Way of Kings. What's the series called? Stormlight Chronicles, right? That's right? Stormlight, the Stormlight Chronicles. Yeah, right. Stormlight fans unite. Sanderson for the win. But yeah, it's a beautiful moment where it pulls you in. You become intrigued and invested. You want to know. Gosh dang it, Kaladin, just say the fourth ideal. Like, I want to see it. Like, I want more. And that's what we're doing for our players, right? As your player is going through things and discovering things, and you encounter somebody, and you dig through, and you find a secret. And that's a moment that a player perks up, right? If you have a player that's at your table who's, like, in their phone, man, it hurts me. It hurts me when players are, like yeah, not like in their phone, like I'm on D&D Beyond because this is where my character sheet is. No, like I can obviously see that this person's just sitting there and scrolling through Instagram. It's like, oh my word, like I'm trying, man. I'm trying to pull you in. Like we're trying to do dynamic action sequences, cool role play puzzles, all the things, and it's not it's not pulling your player in. They're not coming back to the table. Light bulb, right? Here's a Gru moment for us. We need to realize, or perhaps ask ourselves, what have we done to actually invest their character? Like, granted, the player is the player, right? You're not going to escape, someone at the table being distracted. But remember, the players are writing their characters. That sheet that they have to write that. That's their connection to the table. So if their connection to the table is not connected, is literally not connected, nothing's going on the table that matters to their character, how is it that we can expect them to be like super invested in the game? It's not going to happen. They're going to get distracted. Half of us nowadays have ADHD, right? We watch the same children's television that our children watch, and so we've got freaking cocomelon brain, and we can only last for like goldfish 3 seconds, right? So it's literally that. If you're not actively pulling your players onto the table with whatever is in their character, can you really blame them, right? And the powerful way to bring it back, right? The powerful way we can do that. Hey, Leanna Rose. The powerful way for us to do that is to use secrets that tie into their backstory. Because remember, that's page 2. It's right there. It's right there in their notes, sitting in front of them. And so the moment we take a tidbit of that and say, oh, yes, ooh, that's a perfect little tidbit. It just so happens that your father isn't dead. Ooh, your edgy rogue suddenly has a reason, right? There's nothing to stab at the table. What do I care? Nothing's going on, right? You guys give me a hard time every time I try to stab something. So I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to be quiet because you guys don't like me stabbing things. Well, we can find ways to pull in our edgelord and say, guess what? Your parents aren't dead. They're actually a part of an evil cult. And we can go on down this rabbit hole of secrets, and suddenly the rogue's like, wait a second. You've totally turned my character, my connection to the table, upside down, and that player, even if they're a hack and slasher, is suddenly invested in what's going on at the table because you are uncovering secrets. You are sifting through glorious piles of lore and you are finding ways to pull your players in. Brad says, I love when you as a DM gave me a secret mission in a one-shot, but then later learned that everyone had a secret. So Brad is actually on YouTube. Everyone who's on Instagram, I'm also streaming on YouTube. If you want to see the notes, they're there. So Brad is referring to my infamous, it's infamous at this point, but it was the Confederacy of Clerics. I had, I think it was 7 players at the table, so big session for a one-shot. And everybody chose a cleric and a different domain and everything. And we played it as, oh yeah, this Confederacy of Clerics has a mission. And you need to go and do this thing and discover what's happening with this relic. And I gave everybody, so I approached everybody separately, individually. And I said, hey, would you mind if I gave you like a secret mission, something for you to do? Oh, I'm wearing the wrong shirt again. Hold on, Leanna. Would you mind if I gave you a secret mission, something for you specifically to do? And everybody, of course, is like, oh yeah, sure. I mean, what do you got? And I let them know. I said, hey, you need to find the hidden warlock, and you need to kill them. I said, wait, like. In the party? Yep, in the party. In the party, there's a hidden warlock, and you need to discover who they are and kill them. Oh, okay, cool, yeah. And suddenly, it was a game of Clue. Everyone at the table had a different job. hey, you need to make sure that the relic goes through the ritual. You need to make sure that the relic does not go through the ritual. So I gave everybody different and conflicting secret missions, secret goals, and I deliberately planned that session without a climactic encounter. There was not going to be a big, bad, evil guy for them to fight at the end. It was just a fire giant performing a forge ritual with this relic. And as soon as they stepped into the room and they saw the relic, things just like popped off, right? All of these people had been holding on to their secrets the entire night. We're like 3.5 hours in, and people have been like trying to figure out like why people are doing things. They're quickly, oh yeah, the inner party tension it was so sweet. And they were trying to figure out like, okay, who's who, because some people needed to find like a hidden person in the party. And so they were like interviewing each other. It was solid. And like, why did you do that? And so the tension was real, and it made sense for a one-time Confederacy of Clerics to come together on this mission, and they all suspected each other of things. But the climactic moment, my room 4 of my 5-step encounter, was them fighting each other. Just the absolute chaotic throwdown of 7 clerics popping off at the same time. And it was a blast. It was a great session, and it all sourced around them having specific secrets. So, Leanna, I need to go to you first here. Any tips to add their backstory secrets and stuff into a pre-made module? Okay. I'm running Rime of the Frost Maiden, but still want to homebrew elements to include player backstory and give them secrets. This is actually really good. So I specifically started running Waterdeep. And the reason that I started running Waterdeep is because I had never run a module before. Ever. Up until this point, I had been 100% homebrew from the beginning. Literally, I was like, hey, let's play some D&D. This was like 2018. Let's play some D&D, and just went for it. I homebrewed a world, I homebrewed an environment, and we literally just jumped into it. I started with a 5-step encounter and went from there. And that has been, that's my story. That's what I've been D&Ding for the last 4 years, of just 100% homebrew, like almost exclusively. I very rarely even use monster block stuff from the monster manual, because a lot of my players are very experienced. So I deliberately started running a module for this reason, so that I could kind of get a glimpse into, okay, what's module life like? And it's not bad. I don't enjoy the preparation that I have to put into it, because it feels like a lot of me memorizing someone else's story. And that memorizing someone else's story, it's a drag on me personally, because so much of my creative outlet is writing stuff for D&D. But what I did find is that there are good ways to kind of pull in players and secrets, is to associate them with groups. So this kind of sources in the lore, right? So you have to have lore, and of course, Rime of the Frost Maiden, that's set in the north of Forgotten Realms kind of ballpark, and so that entire campaign setting is just rife with lore. There's literally entire modular books written on the lore of that area. And so Slam's got the point of it right there. It's safer to homebrew. You can't ruin the lore by making it up on the spot. But because modules come with all this lore, it's really easy to pull a player in and say, okay, so there's a various groups and gangs. So my module is in the city of Waterdeep, and there's a lot of groups and gangs and things like that. And so it's really easy to say, okay, with your background and stuff, who would we have an association with? And half of my table was like, probably with the Harpers. And so we've been doing a lot of Harper perspective things, right? From the perspective of helping the Harpers, working with the Harpers, working for the Harpers. And that's not necessarily in the module. Like, there's room for it. Like, it provides room for it. But because of the characters that my players built, it made it easy for me to kind of pull them into the story that was already taking place inside of Waterdeep. And now, because they're with the Harpers, it's all skewed and put through that perspective lens. So everything that they've been doing, like the past 3 sessions, have been from the perspective of like missions for the Harpers. And it's been really solid. It could be run totally hands-off, hands-free. You don't need to be associated with anybody, but having them tied into the lore of the campaign setting is extremely helpful from a Dungeon Master's perspective, especially in modules. So for you, the Leanna Rose, I would say the best thing that you could do to tie them in, to tie in secrets, is to find a piece of the lore. And it could be chapters down the road, but remember, these secrets, the foreshadow, the purpose is to foreshadow what is to come, right? And if we can foreshadow to our players, hey, you're a part of this group, and there's potential for things to pop off in a couple of sessions, suddenly they're like, oh, things are going to pop off. Like, what do you mean? What does that mean? They start investigating, and they start doing things, and then they kind of, what's the term? They self, what's the term? They self-manifest their own the plot that was already written into the module, because they were then looking for those secrets that you had foreshadowed to them with their backstory. Bellissimo, right? Excellent. We've got some stuff going on in the YouTube chat. Leanna, I hope that helps. That's how I would do it. That's how I have been doing it. Find a piece of lore, potentially down the road, and just start kind of softly working it in. And you'll find sooner rather than later, your players will be like, ooh, they'll catch on to it, and they will self-manifest that happening in the lore. Really awesome moment for you. All right, I think we were at Manga Artist. My fellow player's Changeling character found out that she had an older sister who was a hag. Her goal? Convert her character into a hag. Oh no, that sounds horrible. I had a crazy homeless person in a city loudly exclaim what my big bad evil guy's plan is, and the players have yet to even investigate. Sometimes broadcasting a secret from an unreliable source is an idea. That's actually really fun, Rory. So that's kind of a fun way to just like slam the players, right? To just slam the players with, hey, like, here's the secret. And they're like, but is it though? You know, they can't help it. You know, it's like walking into an empty room and there's a chest. Oh, a single chest. Like, is it a chest? But is it though? It's the exact same thing, right? You have offered them up a gift, and because of human nature, we find that disreputable, and so it can create some entertaining tension. And then later on, when they discover, oh crap, like he was telling the truth all along, like that's just a fun moment. But that's a great way that we could weave things in there. So very fun. I like that. I like that a lot. Another thing for us to consider with foreshadowing is the point of secrets here. I mentioned it's about foreshadowing, and it's to hook. The secrets are especially useful for hooking our players back into the main plot. And I mentioned we have to actually write. And as soon as and then I got distracted. That's where I was going, right? We have to actually write. And as soon as we do actually write, you will find, I can guarantee it, you will find that secrets will write themselves. The lore will write itself. because you are just answering questions. Thank you, Brad. You are just answering questions about who the big bad evil guy is. Like we can go to last week's notes. I've been keeping them in order here. We can go and we can look at this. Let's make sure we're lined up. Otherwise, yeah, that's solid. Yes, there we go. So we can look at last week's notes, and we instantly, if you haven't noted, like we discussed a couple of things. We came up with our the Sailor Warlock, right? The Warlock that we built on a vampire spawn character. And that could be a fun big bad evil guy because he's intelligent. He has some funky abilities that create the abnormality, right? There's a really disconcerting thing there, right? It's in the contrast. The contrast between normal and abnormal, that is what generates the feeling of wrongness, right? That's what makes a big bad evil guy feel like, oh man, this guy's evil, right? That's not normal, right? That is how evil things can feel evil, in the contrast between normal and abnormal. So as we reveal secrets, if we have a super funky bad guy, we need to be foreshadowing. All right, let's go back here. Yes. Nope, other way, yes. I could have just left that there. Yes. We need to be foreshadowing that with our secrets, the secrets that we're giving them. Because we could just foreshadow bits of lore and secrets for them to find. For instance, I just made a couple of huge lore drops on one of my players who is currently working with their character, just kind of off screen with me, working with their character in trying to kind of discover where they are in everything, like what really their motivations are and all of that. And when we discuss those motivations and who they are and what they want to do, it's really that who, what, when, where, why, right? All the W's. We can write that down. The who, what, when, where, why. And if we start answering all those W's about our big bad evil guy, or about even perhaps our players, the lore is going to write itself, right? So we can let's just kind of make a comparison here, right? So who? Let's pick a big bad evil guy from popular culture. Someone toss one out to us. Whether it's we've been on a Lord of the Rings kick here. Why not? Let's talk about a big bad evil guy from Lord of the Rings, and that could be Wormtongue. He's not necessarily a big bad evil guy, but he was bad enough to, essentially overthrow a kingdom until he got called out for it. Who's got somebody? You go with Saruman. Dr. Frankenstein. Okay, let's go with that. The Dr. Frankenstein. So let's go with Dr. Frankenstein, the doctor, right? What is the doctor doing? He is Smog. Smog. Yeah, let's go with Smog. So we'll go with Smog just to hold true to our Lord of the Rings theme this evening, because apparently that's a thing. So we've got Smog. And what is Smog into? Smog is simply there for the loot. He is a dragon who's been hoarding this treasure. He took over the Dwarven kingdom in order to park his red-scaled backside on a mountain of gold. And that's about it. That's, however much he might be personally detestable, that's his goal. That's what he wanted to do. So he's there for the hoard. Knowing when he did this. So greed. And so that is the why. the greed. And this is kind of the kingdom too. The loot came at the expense of the dwarven kingdom, because he had to kick everybody out in order to, have all of the dwarven riches. The wen. So this wen here. When we think about like just a big bad evil guy and what did they do, that's not what's important. It's when this happened in relation to the protagonists, right? So for Bilbo, it's when did this happen in relation to Bilbo and the 13, the adventurers, right? All the dwarven party. When did this happen in relation to them? It's them essentially trying to reclaim their grandfather's kingdom. These guys have never seen this home, right? It was their father's, and if they did see it, it happened, living memory, but for them, like on the very edges of it. So that's definitely the when, and the where. We know that it's in the dwarven kingdom there in the mountain, the lonely mountain. Okay. And so now we get into the why here. And we can just keep on digging into this why, the why. And as we look at the why, and then we look at the how. Because the who, what, when, where, why, and how. That how really generates a lot of backstory and lore for our players. And so if we take a look at Oakenshield, right? Take a look at Oakenshield. How did he get pulled into this? Well, because of the dragon's greed, he kicked the dwarves out of the kingdom, and now they have this glimmer of hope brought to them by Gandalf at reclaiming the kingdom, but they have to, sneak in and do the things. All right, okay. So the how they're going to do that, that's where the story really takes place. And that is where all of this can be related back to the lore. Because that how, all that was a secret that Gandalf dropped off for them, right? The how, we needed a burglar. Oh, well, I've got a guy, Bilbo. He'll make a great burglar. But that's the secret. The secret exists in, we've got a sneaky boy. He'll get in there and he'll steal the thing that we need. There's a how. Okay. A secret there is that Bilbo is not a sneaky boy and has no idea what he's doing. Right. There's a secret that just naturally evolved from the progression of this why and how line here. Because we follow that, we put it on paper, because Tolkien put it on paper, the natural evolution took place, right? So in your own stories that you're writing, make sure you're doing a who, what, when, where, why, and how of your big bad evil guy. Oh yeah, he takes over the kingdom and he wants world domination for whatever reason, and so on and so forth. Why? How? Why are they doing it? For personal greed. That's great. How do they do it? He burns a kingdom, which happens to be like the home of two of your players. Ooh, okay, great little tidbit there, right? And then we can take that tidbit from the lore, from the background, from the story that we wrote, right? Because we actually sat down and wrote it. We thought about it for a second. Even if it doesn't end up being the main storyline, that's where we're pulling that secret from. And so why do our players care? Well, two of our players, we've got a vengeance paladin that's sourced out of my hometown was burnt, and so on and so forth, and I'm seeking to find who killed my family. And then you're able to discover that it was this guy, this bad guy, the big bad evil guy, was the one responsible for it. Suddenly, you've pulled from your player's backstory, from the lore that was created, the why and the how, and suddenly your player, that vengeance paladin, is yet again invested in the plot. And they're not in their phone. They're there at the table, experiencing the role-playing game together. So, folks, I hope that this discussion on secrets and lore, I know I didn't discuss the Great Green Sea very much this evening, but I really wanted to discuss, because I'm currently working on the secrets and lore going on in the Great Green Sea. So this was just the natural progression. But I kept it generic tonight so that I didn't reveal any spoilers for my players. And I hope that you are able to take this discussion on secrets and lore and apply it to your game. Who knows what can happen? It can't happen unless you make it happen. So if for everyone on Instagram, I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe on YouTube. That's where the notes are. That's where most of the chat took place this evening. Have a great night. And as always, take care of your players. Everyone's still here on YouTube. Thank you so much. It was a great session this evening. Thank you for all of your discussion. It's extremely helpful. I could, just because I'm a windbag, just dialogue all night. But that's not as fun. It's not as fun. And so thank you so much for hanging out. I really appreciate it. And if you have suggestions, perhaps I'll reach out to you guys. If you have suggestions for future videos, anything that you would like to hear about, tips or tricks, that sort of thing, how I dungeon master in general, feel free to drop it in the chat or message me on Instagram. I'm more than willing to discuss anything, anytime, anywhere. But more importantly, have fun, and as always, take care of your players.